Good morning, gang. Happy Tuesday morning. You know what our biggest enemy is right now? It's our own apathy, okay? I mean, as the American people just don't seem to care enough to take their country back from communism, from crime, from illegal migration, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If it's the old NIMBY principle, not in my backyard. If it ain't right in your front yard, your backyard, your neighborhood, or whatever, people don't care. They may talk about it on Twitter or whatever it is, but they don't. It's not happening to me. So we stick our heads in the sand, and there just isn't enough fight. You know, I mean, remember Trump, fight, fight, fight. Right? There isn't enough. We aren't raising hell enough yet. Now, we talked about the stories of the Hells Angels, the Outlaws, who knows if the Mongols get involved, whatever, you know, any of these other groups. Okay, they're willing to fight. I'll give you this. Most of us don't have hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of friends that we would be a viable force. But we need to collectively get together to do something. We saw all these stories in Aurora, Colorado, that at least the mayor is now acknowledging. The governor is still sitting on his hands. But what if that happened in your backyard? What if that happened in your town, your city? What are you going to do? Don't think it won't happen. Now, let me ask you this. If somebody came up to you and said, where is the most dangerous place in the United States? Where would you not walk at night? Okay. And you might say, I don't know, Washington, D.C. That'd be a dangerous place. You might say parts of St. Louis. Yeah, that would be. You might say the south side of Chicago. At least I would. Okay. I want to give you this. Everything that happened in Aurora is happening on the south side of Chicago. That you have violent Venezuelan migrant gangs taking over apartment complexes. On the south side of Chicago, where couple of dozen people get shot and killed every weekend. And they don't care because they're armed, they're organized, and they'll just take out anybody that stands in their way. You don't believe me? Listen to this. This is a 911 dispatcher, and listen to it carefully.
Unit 10-3, I'm citywide person with a gun, 6124 South King Drive. Caller says 32 Venezuelans are trespassing the building, showing guns in the courtyard, and they have motorcycles in the courtyard as well. All stairwells are filled. Nothing further, zone clear.
Hey, I'm sorry, you headed over to the ShotSpotter or to the 6124 on King for the migrants?
On King Drive.
All right, 10-4. There's another available unit to arrive at 310. We had multiple calls. Person with the gun, 6124 South King. Also came over to disturbance large gathering. Said to be 32 Venezuelans trespassing in the building property, showing guns in the courtyard. They have motorcycles in the courtway, all stairwells filled. And nothing further.
Now, if you listened closely enough, you heard her say, armed migrants, gangs, taking over an apartment complex. Okay. Now, if you want to see exactly where this is, take a look at this map. This is basically in between Englewood and Hyde Park. Okay. Not exactly what you'd call the safest part of town, but they're taking it over. And before anybody says, oh, 6124 King Drive, that's not, how do you know that's an apartment complex? Well, take a look at this picture. This is straight off of Zillow, 6124 King Drive. A 2-bedroom apartment runs about $124,000. This is a very black community, okay? What are these violent Venezuelan gangs doing? They are displacing the black community because they can go in with guns and not be looked at cross-eyed. The apartment complexes they were taking over in Aurora were in the black part of town. You start looking at this and go, okay, they're going into, I wouldn't necessarily say this is a poor side of town. $124,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment ain't exactly cheap, okay? But we're not talking about Beverly Hills either. We need to come together, black and white, Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, and get rid of these people that are trying to take over our towns. They hit Aurora. Now they're hitting Chicago. It would not surprise me one bit if they're not in places in New York or in Boston or in San Francisco. Well, no, not San Francisco, because San Francisco, they just give them the houses. But any blue city. And again, they're primarily going to go after the cities because that's where their customers are. They're not necessarily going after the rich areas. They're going after the poor areas. The poor areas aren't as well defended. How long is it till they come out to your neck of the woods? I don't know. You live in Minneapolis. You live in Kansas City. You live in Austin, Texas. You live in Atlanta. Okay? Sure, these are all heavily blue Democrat cities with minority populations that they can go in, terrorize, and take over. We collectively, Americans, need to take back our country. The government's not doing it. They're asking for these people to come. They're saying, oh, gee, these people need housing too. We need to give them money, cars, food stamps, whatever, right? I mean, the story that's been making the news for months now, guy that works 40 years in his life collects his $1,200 Social Security check, but a guy that walks across the border says, hi, I'm here, they hand him $2,500. You get twice as much for not working and being illegal than you do for working your ass off, busting your back, losing your hearing, whatever, aches and pains, and you get half the money. Oh, and that's right, it's your own money you're getting back, just at an absolute crap return. Okay. Yeah, this is it. If we don't stand up, if we don't raise hell, and I'm not talking about going in guns a-blazing, okay? I'm talking about putting massive amounts of pressure on your city, your police department, your county, your sheriff, your governor, whatever. If we don't put massive pressure on them to do something, this is what our future holds. Because Aurora's already proven, hey, you know what? The authorities don't care. We can do more. And so they went into Denver. Now they're into Chicago. What happens when they're into Atlanta or Raleigh or Salt Lake City? They're coming. Don't get me wrong. We've let 20 million people into this country. Venezuela is saying, look, our crime rate's down. Sure, because all their criminals are now in the United States. We know our crime rate is way up. Of course, the Biden-Harris campaign, or Now, the Harris campaign is saying crime's down. It's crime reporting is down. It's not crime is down. This is what's coming. This is what you need to be ready for. I told you a couple of weeks ago about a real good deal for protecting yourself. Some of you took advantage of it. I know I did. Okay. This is what's coming. You're going to be outnumbered. You need to be collectively, your family, your friends, your neighbors, watching your area to make sure this doesn't happen. Because there's a very good possibility, depending on where you live, that these guys are going to show up at your house in the next week, the next month, the next year, because they're not happy just taking over one. Remember, they're not looking for a place for themselves to live. Okay? They're taking over an apartment complex. Sure, maybe they move into 4 or 5 of the apartments, but the other 100 or so apartments there, they want the rent from. This is what they're doing. They're basically telling people, you pay me now. And when the people say, no, I don't have a agreement with them, they're taken out of that apartment either forcefully or in a body bag, okay, and replaced with somebody who will pay these guys. The war is coming to our soil. We have to be ready for it. Do you think the 1.9 million active duty military personnel in this country are going to be able to help the entire country? No. The cops, they've basically been given stand-down orders. The governors are afraid to call in the National Guard to do anything about this. And again, I go back to less than 10% of military personnel are in combat arms. Sending a guy in who's a cook or a clerk or a mechanic or whatever, sure, he knows his way around an M16, but you're talking about going up against hardened criminal gangs. They're not exactly trained for that. Remember, your National Guardsmen are Joe Average, most of them at least, who go work a 9-to-5 job or something during the week, and then they train on the weekends. All right, these are not Special Forces, Delta, Navy SEALs that are running around. It's going to take a lot of people. There are going to be a lot of casualties, both collateral damage and people fighting against them. We need to be ready for this. We need to be watching for this very closely, because these guys just come in and go, hey, there's a nice place. It's not 2 weeks of planning and talking to the county and saying, we want to do this. They just walk in and say, hi, we're here, pay me. When somebody walks up to your door and knocks on the door, hopefully by now most people know, do not answer the door unless you know who it is, okay? Because we've seen enough of these pretending to be Amazon drivers, UPS drivers, utility workers, and they come in. These are, again, the Venezuelan gangs coming in and robbing, raping the people in the house, kidnapping. Don't open your door. If you see somebody on the door, and again, this depends on your state, remember you should know these, your stand your ground laws and your castle doctrine laws. Because if they're on your porch, depending on your state, that's considered part of your domicile. It's worth it for you to check what you can legally do in a situation like that. Because all of a sudden, if Carlos and Juan don't come back to the boss at the end of the day, and then a couple more don't come back later, maybe they move along. We're in a sad state when we have to protect our homes like that. But it's been going on for a few years at this point. Cash.app, Portland, Minneapolis, Kenosha. Those weren't illegals. Those were just insane people. These guys are just as insane, except they're a lot more dangerous. You need to be ready for that too. Because again, the cops ain't coming. The military ain't coming. Your son, your best friend, or whatever is still minutes away when you have seconds to react. You need to be able to defend yourself. Otherwise, you are just going to be another person in tomorrow morning's obituaries. Pinball out.